I just did a video about making strawberry flavored milk, and someone had some questions about powdered milk on that video. And they didn't realize that there were differences between the different powdered milks, and then somebody else popped up and said that they didn't realize there were differences either. They asked me if I could make a video about this. When you're thinking about powdered milk, most people think of this one. This is what is most easily available to us. It's an instant non-fat dry milk. And if you're going to the LDS cannery, they have a regular non-fat dry milk. And the difference between the regular and the instant is in the process they use for drying it. There's a website called USA Emergency Supply, I believe it is, and they explain the difference between the two processes for those two types of milk, and I'll put a link to that in the description box. But basically what they are doing is spraying milk out of a nozzle and then drying it while it's in the air. The regular type will end up in a powder form. With the instant type, they'll spray it out of that nozzle, but it's mixed with something called lecithin. And the lecithin will cause the milk to form like a bubble, and it dries into like a bubble while it's in the air, and then that bubble will rehydrate faster in water than the regular type will. And I'll show you the difference here. You see those little balls? That's the instant type. I don't have any of the non-instant. I don't have easy access to that. That's one of the problems those of us on the East Coast have that a lot of people don't realize. The only place that I've been able to find the non-instant, non-fat for sale available to me is at that USA Emergency place. However, the shipping eats me alive. They're in Utah, and to ship one number 10 can of that milk, it will cost me something like $14 in shipping. I think that's even more than the milk cost. So the only other option would be to go to an LDS cannery, which I don't have that here either. I know people are going to suggest that I do that, but the nearest one is 300 miles away. It would cost me like probably $100 worth of gas to get there and back. So the cannery is just out of the question for me. And this non-fat, the instant type, is what you will generally see sold on the emergency type of websites. And one thing to be aware of, a difference between the two, is that the regular type is more compressed and more compact, and it takes less of that to make a gallon of milk than this puffed type. So when if you're comparing the price difference between two number 10 cans, be sure you're doing a fair comparison. Be sure to check to see exactly how many gallons of milk you will get from that number 10 can, and calculate it out that way, because the prices can be very deceiving. And I have that worked out on a chart, and I'll go upstairs and show you that in a minute. And there's a few other types of milks that you can store. There's one called Nido, and this is a whole milk. And you can buy this in Walmart in the Mexican food section. The storage life isn't the best on this, though. I think the storage life on the cans are usually like about maybe 2 years out. And but this is a whole milk, whereas these are non-fat. And this can be quite pricey when you calculate how much milk you can make from a can. And like I said, I'll show you that on that chart. And this is a milk alternative. This is not like a real milk. This one is my choice. I've tasted all the others, and this one tastes the most like milk in my opinion. And this was the worst tasting of all. Wouldn't you know, that's the one that's most easily available to everybody. But this was my choice. And from what I understand, that if you're going to use powdered milk in your baking, then the non-fat milks are the better thing to use. And they don't say that this shouldn't be used for baking, but the way they word it on their website, they just make it sound like it's just a good drinking milk. I have used it in baking for like cornbread and muffins and things, and I haven't noticed a problem with it, but that's not saying that there isn't a problem with it. So you could count on this for drinking or using in cereal, that type of stuff. But as far as baking, I'm not baking bread. I'm not sure how that would work. I haven't tried that. Okay, here's the chart that I put together to show you how different all of these milks can be. And this isn't like a complete list of everybody that sells milk or trying to tell you which one would be the best deal or anything, because there's so many things to take into consideration. What I just want to point out to you is what you need to take into consideration. So for example, this is the USA Emergency Supply. They have instant non-fat milk, $15.37 for a number 10 can. It will make 4.75 gallons, and that breaks down to $3.24 per gallon. Their regular non-fat, $13.12, makes 5 gallons, $2.62 a gallon. One of the things you need to take into consideration on these things is the shipping cost. Shipping cost for me, for one number 10 can of that milk, would be $14.18. That just makes it ridiculous. This is the Honeyville milk alternative. Their shipping is $4.49 no matter how many cans you buy. That's a great deal for those of us on the East Coast, and they tend to add to their price to compensate for that. So it turns out that their prices aren't the best for those that are on the West Coast. So that's something you have to take into consideration. But their milk alternative will make 6 gallons, breaks down to $2.89 a gallon. Here's their instant non-fat, $14.69, and if you were comparing just the two prices, you'd think, wow, that's a good deal. I get a number 10 can for $14.69 instead of this alternative for $7.39. However, when you look closely, that non-fat only makes 3 gallons of milk, so it ends up $4.89, $2 more per gallon if you bought it that way. And this is Emergency Essentials. Provident Pantry has an instant non-fat, $15.99 a gallon. Then they also have a fortified instant non-fat for $14.50. And you could look at that and say, wow, that's what I'd rather buy. It's $14.50 for a number 10 can. Why would I buy this? Well, if you look closely at how many gallons each one of those cans will make, the price comes out very different. It would be $5.16 a gallon, even though you're paying less per number 10 can. You're paying far more per gallon. Here's the Nido from Walmart. That gets kind of pricey. And then Walmart's instant non-fat looks like a pretty good deal, but then that's in that little flimsy cardboard box. So you would have to add in the cost of storing it yourself in, something that's mouse-proof, buckets or something like that. So, as for me, my best deal was the milk alternative. I got the best shipping, the best price per gallon, and it tastes the best to me. And another thing you need to consider is how much each one of those different milks takes to make a quart, and that can be very different. For this milk here, you only need half a cup of the powdered milk to make a quart. However, the Walmart box one, you need 1 1/3 cups of the mix to make a quart of milk. And this can take up a lot more storage space than this can. So that's another thing to take into consideration. And another thing you need to consider is the nutritional value of each one of the different milks. This is the Emergency Essentials, Provident Pantry, the one that's not fortified. And if you look at the vitamin content, there's no vitamin A and no vitamin D in this, whereas the milk alternative at Honeyfield has 30% vitamin A and 30% vitamin D. However, it doesn't have as much protein. It only has 3 grams of protein, whereas the non-fat has 15% there, 7 grams. So one of the advantages of having the non-fat milk is the higher protein content. This is just a whole lot to take into consideration. As far as my own personal needs, we use milk for drinking more than for anything. So the majority of my milk storage is the milk alternative. And then I have some of the non-fat for baking. But I have the instant because the regular type is not easily accessible for me. So that's the differences between the milks. Basically, the regular just takes longer to rehydrate than the instant non-fat. The regular is more of a compact form of milk. It would take up less storage space, and it's often cheaper than the instant. The milk alternative is a whey-based product, and it does have some non-fat milk in it. A lot of people have a misconception about that milk, thinking that it has hydrogenated shortening in it. I think years ago it did, but they don't do that any longer. And in fact, the milk I've had for a couple of years, and it's not in any of the ingredients on that. Some people would argue that the non-fat is healthier for you than the alternative. However, in my opinion, anything that I won't drink doesn't have any health benefits to me at all. The non-fat just tastes so bad to me, I know I won't drink it. I will drink the milk alternative. So that's my thoughts on the milk. I hope it helps.